Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Are we ready for some roller coaster action since we are playing Planet Coaster after all? We spent the last few episodes focusing on the details for our lovely town square, but now it's time to crank up the fun. So this episode we're tackling the Basin Park Coaster. It's a classic wooden coaster that'll be the perfect addition and backdrop to the Basin Spring Park. We'll be building this beauty, then ending with some POV and cinematic shots so you can really experience the ride, and yeah, let's get to building. Alright everybody, things are changing around here, so we've laid a solid foundation, and now it's time to get really creative. We've done a lot of recreation work so far, which takes creativity in its own right, but now we're stepping into a new phase of the Eureka project where we'll start bringing in some of our own creative, unique elements and things that blend the real town with some fun theme park style ideas. So I also really want to be thoughtful about how I do this because I am taking some creative liberties. It is a real place and I just want to do Eureka justice. Like if we were imagining Eureka as a theme park, this is what it might look like. All right, and initially I thought about a different coaster style for the park, but at least for this section, but nothing quite felt right. A rustic wooden coaster really complements the vintage charm of Basin Spring Park and just fits the whole aesthetic pretty well. I built this whole first section of the coaster and then ended up deleting it because when I went down to the street view, I couldn't quite see it within the trees, and I want to make sure I see that first peak as well as some other peaks throughout the forest, kind of peeking out through the trees. I want the coaster to be a part of the park and forest in some way, and it just wasn't quite visible enough at first. And one of the big things that I'm really excited about building is this detailed wooden coaster station up on the mountain. So picture this, a really ornate, almost storybook style station at the very top with a canopy road running along the edge where Eureka Street is located in real life. And imagine all those charming houses nestled along the road, culminating in this roundabout right at the station where the mountain drops dramatically from behind it. All under a canopy of trees. At least this is what I have in my head, but it's beautiful, right? We will see if that is how it all pans out. Also, quick note, my camera work in this episode is a little wild, and I apologize. It's kind of getting back into the swing of things. It's been, almost 2 years since I built a coaster in Planet Coaster. I've been so busy with Planet Zoo. I have this huge project, and so just getting back into the swing of things, but I promise things are a bit smoother towards the end. And yeah, speaking of smooth, I can't wait to give you a virtual tour of these other projects I've been working on or have worked on, especially the Planet Zoo, because the cinematic mode makes it just so much better, and I am really looking forward to that in this game / expecting it to be here as soon as possible because it just makes this whole YouTubing experience so much more enjoyable. My initial vision for the coaster was pretty epic because it started at the mountaintop and slowly wound its way down. And it was a very dramatic crescendo, I realized. So once I started thinking about how that would actually work and look within the park, I realized I kind of wanted to change. So I realized I wanted that incredible initial drop to really set the tone for the coaster's experience, but also scenically within the imagery of the landscape around it. I really wanted it to be prominent. There to be a prominent drop. But I also didn't want it to completely dominate the rest of the ride, especially since it's mostly downhill. So I adjusted my initial design and followed that drop by some immediate trim brakes to keep the speed nice and manageable for the rest of the ride. Because it's all about the smooth thrills. And let me tell you, the new coaster tools in Planet Coaster 2 are really amazing. The smoothing system is so much better than before, letting me really create some interesting designs much faster, I feel. Seriously, the forward-backward button alone is literally a game changer. Way less clicking. It's beautiful. And I really wanted to use the turns and tree placement to give some great views of the park below. Honestly, it didn't really work out as well as I had hoped in the POV. You'll see at the end of the video, but I think once more of the town is built up and the surrounding areas are built, those views are gonna improve dramatically. During the construction, I kept most of the trees on the mountain, only removing them when it was necessary. It just kind of helps me keep my bearings, keep that sense of the actual landscape. My process is a little non-kosher. I like some of the elements before others. Some people start with the ride and then do everything else, and I kind of like some of the scenic elements, and then I'll put in my ride to kind of ground me, and then I finish everything else afterwards. That's generally how I do my building. And while building, I got this really cool idea of doing an underground spring reservoir beneath the park, beneath Basin Spring Park, the town square. So the coaster would make this like final plunge into a cave opening right behind the stage, and I couldn't get that design down fast enough for this episode, and I want to make that perfect, so I kept the original concept for now. For this coaster, dipping behind the stage, and then doing the chain lift. But I really love the idea, so I'm definitely putting that underground spring idea and cave drops somewhere in Eureka Springs. Maybe downtown with a metal coaster at one of the other spring locations. It might be a little more fantastical than the actual springs, but hey, this is a theme park. And then after that final plunge, we'll kind of send it whipping around a few turns behind the hotel. A little controlled chaos to help keep that momentum in check. And I've been looking at some photos of the area behind the hotel, and there's this incredible bluff that overlooks their courtyard, and it's so striking. I wanted to incorporate it with the coaster, letting the track make a brief appearance up on the bluff, nestled amongst the trees. I might adjust this section a bit later once I finish the detailing in the hotel's back courtyard and bluff area. And then here I'm focusing on establishing the bluff shape and angle, because that's what makes it so visually appealing. That dramatic incline, there's this dramatic incline next to the courtyard, all canopied in green, and getting the courtyard's level right is tricky with limited information, but I'll work with what I have. I could have added more detail to the bluff, but I wanted to avoid getting too bogged down before I finish the coaster itself. Ideally, I would have avoided a second chain lift, but the scale of the coaster, I think it warrants it. It's pretty big, and it kind of allows for that big drop in the beginning, which I really wanted. And plus, there are some houses up along the hillside along the final chain lift, So there will be eventually a lot more interesting detail to look at as we head back to the station. And there it is, the Basin Park Coaster. Just taking a moment to zoom around and admire it. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. It might not be my absolute best coaster design ever. Nobody here would probably know. Since it's been a couple years since I built one, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of this. I think it's a great addition to the park. Pretty nice feature. Probably more featured than I originally imagined, but I'm into it. And now that I have my track completed, I'm going to do a little bit of smoothing. And once again, this system is just incredible. I'm only including this part in the time lapse because it went by so quickly. I focused on smoothing out the highest G-force spots, but I wanted to keep the overall feel of those banks and humps towards the end of the ride. And I'm adding some man-made elements and natural details around the park, the Basin Park, to just help me visualize the final look once the pathways through all of this and the lighting are in. Those wooden barriers, I'm building some wooden barriers here along the mountainside. They seem like a good fit. There's a lot of wood and stonework in the area, and I feel like that's iconically Arkansas, is just being in the woods, and then there's these random man-made structures kind of built within. So I wanted it to look like the mountain was carefully carved to create foundation for the coaster in certain parts, but nothing too drastic. Eventually I'm gonna add a whole bunch of pine trees to the area, blending it in with all the fall foliage that we already have. And I'm thinking, well, loblollies are the Arkansas state tree, and I'm pretty sure I remember those covering my parents' property when I was a kid. And along with a lot of white pines. Speaking of white pines, anyone who's ever used a white pine as their Christmas tree knows about those notoriously prickly needles. Let me tell you, those things will stick in your feet for days. Anyways, I'll probably use the juniper trees for the white pines. They look the closest. And then the Scots pines look just like the loblollies. I love the pine trees in this game. All the foliage. It looks so, so good. I don't know if I'll use spruce, but I will definitely use the ponderosa pines. I love the oak trees, the sycamores, the sugar maples, those purple ones I do have here. Gorgeous. Great choices. And I'm absolutely in love with the weeping willows in the game. They're not here, they're not shown here, but there are definitely properties in the area with willows draped over water, and I'm definitely going to utilize that. I cannot wait. They're so beautiful in this game. So I'm going to finish up these barriers and sprinkle in some lighting and foliage and give me an idea of how I want to end up finishing this place up. I will meet you back here for the POV ride. All right, all, what a ride. That is the Basin Park Coaster. Let me know what you all think in the comments. In the next couple weeks, we'll be tackling the coaster station and adding more detail to the surrounding forest to make it even more immersive. Thank you all for being so patient and joining me on our first ride. Building Eureka Springs has been such an adventure so far, and your support means the world to me. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, especially in these early days. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.